Ocean Story is with you, and I have new stories that touch me. I have a wife whom I have been married to for 3 years, Abigail, and I don't have any children, and we don't even plan to have any in the next 5 years. My wife also has a sister, Emily, who is a year and a half older than her. Emily has a husband, Jacob, who is currently working as a salesman in a large supermarket. Emily currently has 2 children. One of them is 7 years old and the other is 5 years old. As you can imagine, Jacob's family is not in the best of financial situations. My wife's family helps Jacob with the finances so that their family can exist, because the maximum salary Jacob can get per month is no more than $6,000. This is not enough to support 4 people. Even with some benefits for Jacob's family, it's not enough. Abigail's whole family helps her sister with money, especially when one of Emily's sons got sick and spent a week in the hospital. Then they had to spend about $1,000 on treatment, which hit Emily's budget hard. This is just one example of how bad the money situation is there. Despite this, my wife told me a story about how she was sitting with Emily, and her sister started telling her that she dreamed of a big family and wanted at least 6 children. Abigail almost choked on her water when she heard that. My wife said, "I love children very much, and it's great when you have little copies of you, but everything has its time, and especially not in your condition with Jacob." Emily asked, "What makes you think it's not important for me and my husband right now?" Abigail said, "Sister, look at your life and your condition. You should be thinking about how to provide for yourself and 2 more children, especially since your husband is not able to provide you with much financial freedom right now." My wife said that Emily was a little stiff at what she said, but she agreed. I also spoke to Jacob once about their situation and the children. Jacob said that they do not plan to have children in the near future, at least not until his income increases by 50%. So I was calm about my wife's family. 4 days ago, we met the whole Emily family when we were in the parking lot of a hardware store because I needed to buy some supplies for work. Jacob had stopped to buy some nails and met us. We stood and talked a bit about life because we hadn't had contact with each other for a few weeks. Suddenly, I heard Emily saying strange things to my wife. "Abigail, you won't believe what I'm going to tell you." We stood there for 2 more minutes and I said, "Milt, it's time to go home." In the car, I told Abigail what Emily told you because she was so excited to tell you. My wife said, "Emily thinks she's pregnant and she's going to the doctor tomorrow to find out." Suddenly, my wife started to get emotional. Don't they realize that children will only hurt them? Jacob is working at his job and is exhausted from asking other relatives for help. And now, he and Emily are thinking of having another child. What the hell are these people thinking? I'm wondering how Emily and her husband are going to support their entire family. Let's move forward 1 month. Emily has finally been confirmed pregnant and is very happy about it. Out of joy, Emily wrote a message to me saying that she was pregnant and was waiting for congratulations. I wrote that I congratulate you very much on this, Emily, and I wish you to be a worthy mother. My wife did not write anything from herself because she did not understand what to congratulate her sister on. I only wrote that message to Emily out of good intentions. My wife is very right and I share her words. Not long ago, my dad said we could go to a local lake and spend some family time there. I said it sounded like a great idea, so we invited all the relatives who were free that weekend. Abigail and I got there a little early to set up the place for the rest. 20 minutes later, Emily and Jacob arrived. My wife's sister immediately came to Abigail and asked, "Why you didn't write me any greetings?" Abigail said, "I congratulate you." Emily said, "You don't sound sincere." Abigail lost control of herself and said, "What do I have to congratulate you on? Your husband works like a slave so that you can stay at home and raise your children like a queen. The whole family sends you money once a month so you can feed your 2 children, and now you go around telling everyone that you and Jacob are going to have another child." Emily replied, "Can't you be happy for me?" My wife replied, "If everyone stops helping you from this month, then you will only have enough money to eat. Is that normal? So I think you and your husband have done something stupid." Emily started to cry and went to the car. Jacob told Abigail to be quiet and not to upset his wife. Of course, all relatives and close friends learned about this event. My aunt called us the next day and said that our family was a house of insensitive people. We had to show at least a little respect and joy to Emily and Jacob. But no, we decided to tell them this important truth. I started to tell my aunt that Emily herself said that it was important for her to hear my wife's opinion. So what could they possibly have against us? My aunt said that sometimes you have to keep quiet and not say what you think. And so it went on for several days. Everyone who wanted to call us names or write to us and say what freaks we are with Abigail. Maybe my wife was a little harsh with Emily, but I don't think it was something to be offended by and then complain about to everyone. Michael, I've never understood why people with low incomes start having a lot of children. Like, how do you survive or build your own life? Sometimes it's hard to buy everything you need on your own. And on top of that, you have a few more children who are not so cheap to support. Emily is emotional now and happy to become a mom. But what will happen next? Will Emily be happy when she doesn't even have enough money to buy a new pair of sneakers? Life is a thing that needs to be through and figured out how to do the best. But it seems that Emily and Jacob's family can only think about how to spend 20 minutes in bed and then have problems for the rest of their lives. It's not surprising that Emily is upset with your sister. But is it really necessary to be offended by such a truth? Abigail expressed a rational opinion to her sister, but Emily did not accept it. Elizabeth, any woman will be happy if she finds out that she is pregnant with her favorite person. The question is not even that these people do not have the means to support their children, but that you and your wife are not ready to support your family in difficult or happy times. Couldn't Abigail have just congratulated her sister and discussed it with you separately and told you how stupid Emily is? You really lost your humanity due to your thoughts. It may be difficult for Emily's family, but there is no need to spoil the atmosphere and call them stupid. It would be best if you and your wife supported Emily instead of judging her. You think that it is not your fault that you and Abigail are being judged, but you don't pay attention to the fact that you were with your wife who was the first to judge. You and Abigail should apologize to Emily and Jacob. A story that really surprised me. The story is about my sister Mila, who is 5 years older than me. Mila was one of those kids who got along well with everyone around her. Unfortunately, I didn't have the same talents. At the age of 15, my sister Mila started going out with a group of mostly boys who were only interested in doing bad things to get an adrenaline rush. Even once, my mom took Mila away from the police for disorderly conduct. These were not the easiest times for our family. Mila was constantly fighting with my dad and could go weeks without talking to anyone. No prohibition or words had any effect on Mila. Sometimes Mila would escape through the window when my dad forbade her to go for a walk. Because of Mila's behavior, my parents started seeing a psychologist, but it didn't really help them much. My sister was very violent, and her parents were not an authority for her. When Mila went to university, I almost never saw her at home. My sister was always at her friends' houses or out and about. Mila could come home once a week at best. This behavior really annoyed my parents. Their nerves are not in order now. I knew my sister as a girl who was always getting into trouble and was in no hurry to solve them. At least Mila was like that until she was 23, when she met a wonderful guy named Daniel, who helped her get rid of these bad habits and company. Our introduction to Daniel was very abrupt, and my mom and dad were somewhat tongue-in-cheek when Mila came over one evening with some guy. At the table, we found out that Daniel is a very nice person and has a decent job and has never been in trouble with the law. Since then, they have been coming to our parents' house on major holidays. Now my sister and Daniel are married and have 2 children. Avery is a girl who is 7 years old, and her brother, who is 5 years old. My mom used to organize a party in honor of her birthday and invite only close people. It was really great for me because I could see Mila and talk to her about appropriate topics. Although my sister has changed a lot, my parents can still remember Mila's mistakes. It happened when we were celebrating my mom's birthday. At the table, my dad started recalling various silly stories about Mila. She asked him to shut up because it was in the past, but my dad was very hard to shut up. Suddenly, in the middle of the story, there was a loud sound of a fall from the living room. The children were sitting there playing with their toys. A rubber ball fell behind a plasma screen that was on a small shelf. Avery hit the plasma with her elbow and it fell and broke her screen. My dad immediately jumped up and ran to the living room. He was the first one to get there. To tell you the truth, that plasma was old and was going to be updated this year. But regardless, my dad started yelling at Avery for what she had done. My dad didn't even listen to his granddaughter's explanation. He just started yelling at her and threatened Avery that she would be in the corner for the rest of the holiday. My sister heard my dad yelling at her daughter, and they had a short fight. My sister said to my dad, "You can't be fixed. You will always be so rude." My dad replied, "Mela, I am like this only because of you, because you have been a fool all your life and have caused a lot of trouble for me." My sister said, "I'm done being in this house." Mila took her daughter by the hand, and the whole family left my parents' house. My dad went to the kitchen after Mila left with her family, and my dad was just sitting there eating his salad. I sat down across from him and said, "You were very rude to Mila and her daughter." My dad said, "I know that very well without you. You don't like it? Then get out of my house too." I said, "You should have been more careful. You and Mom probably won't see your grandchildren for a long time." After that, I put on my boots and went to my apartment. My mom wrote that I was very rude to my dad just now, and I should apologize. I told her that I was not going to apologize to a rude person like my dad. She said I was as stupid and stubborn as my sister. I never answered any more messages from my parents. I was also very unhappy to hear that my dad behaved like an asshole with a girl who was only 7 years old. My dad thinks that my sister Mila did the wrong thing when she left, but what was she supposed to do? Sit there and listen to him yell at Avery, "Henry, man, your dad is a real asshole. In no case should you shout at children. Everything can be explained well in words without aggression. Your dad probably doesn't have the best parenting methods. I'm guessing that he raised you and Mela the same way. Yelling is the worst thing for children. Adults treat children like adults, but children don't understand a lot of things, and I don't know if Avery understood why her grandfather had such a reaction. It's a shame that your dad allowed himself to start yelling at a little girl. I guess it's as if no one was around, and it happened on a normal day. Then Avery would have been punished very badly. Apparently, your dad raises people through violence and pain. Your niece would have been on her knees in her room until the whole day passed. People like your dad cannot be good grandfathers. If he got that angry at a little girl, I'm afraid to imagine how he would have yelled at an adult. Sophia, I'm in the cheek. Your mom started defending your dad for his disgusting words. The only one who should be apologizing is your dad. It doesn't matter what Avery did. It matters how adults react to it. With this kind of upbringing, you can only destroy children's psyche and sow hatred, not love, in children. The most disgusting thing is that your parents and Mila are living in the past, and even at the holiday table, they started to mention Mela's mistakes and problems when it is clearly not appropriate. I believe that your parents are very proud that your sister has become sane, and now they can blame Mela for her past. Parents should be the ones who are happy to accept their children's mistakes and help them solve them. But your dad is a common man who knows nothing about raising children. No wonder why your sister grew up as a gangster. Jackson, your parents are really disgusting. Your sister did the right thing by her husband when she left her parents' house. You should write or call your sister to support her, because after such moments there is no mood, and it is important to have support from someone. Your sister and her daughter do not deserve to be treated like this by your father. Thank God that Daniel did not get involved in this conflict. Otherwise, the holiday could have ended in a fight. Then your family would have never gotten together again. My next story. I am now 18 years old and have moved out of my parents' house and into my university dormitory, and I am very happy that I did. This is a short story about my life and why I stopped loving my family after I turned 15. My dad worked as a high-altitude worker. One day, my father's colleague failed to keep an eye on the safety of a knot, and my father fell to the bottom. He died the next day after being in intensive care. All this happened when I was 11 years old. I have a younger brother who was 6 years old at the time. It was very difficult for me to adapt to the loss of my father. My grandmother helped me a lot to overcome this grief. Even though I visited her only once a month, a year after my dad died, my mom found a new boyfriend, Mason. They quickly realized that they loved each other and got married. I couldn't fall in love with Mason, unlike my brother. For me, there could not be any other parents but my own. For me, my dad was the kindest man in the world. Mason can't replace my dad, and I felt that right away. My mom tried to make me love him, but there was no room in my heart for him. Only my mom was able to feel happy with Mason. When my mom and Mason got married, they asked me to walk down the aisle and scatter rose flowers. I refused because it wasn't really a celebration for me. Even though I was already 12 years old, and it had been a year since I had left my father, it was hard for me to accept that Mason was my new dad. So I refused my parents' request. My mom was very upset by my refusal. Only my grandmother was able to save me from my mother's condemnation. When I was 13 years old, I began to understand. No matter how hard Mason tried, he could not be my dad. Although he was not a bad man and even paid a lot of attention to me and tried to be generous to me, there was simply no space in my heart for him. Sometimes I tried to make him love me, but it didn't work. Also, when I was 13, my mom said that it would be great if I considered Mason my dad and didn't call him Mason, but said dad or daddy. I told her that this would not happen because I had no desire for it. My mom treated me harshly and punished me for it. I stayed home for a week and didn't go out. These were the first steps towards hating my parents. Over the course of the year, the pressure from my mother became much stronger. My mom started threatening me if I didn't start showing love to Mason. Then she would be forced to refuse to buy me a new phone. In this way, my mom wanted to force me to love a complete stranger. I can't explain what was wrong with Mason, just the fact that I didn't like him. I compare him to my dad all the time. My dad was always good not only to me, but Mason tries to be good only to his family. When I was 14, my mom explicitly said that Mason would sign the document for my adoption, and I would be legally considered his daughter. I said I didn't need a fake father. My mom said I was a little fool who didn't understand anything. I was 15 years old, and my mom started dragging me consent to the opiate treatment. I escaped from her arms and ran to my grandmother. Since that day, my relationship with my mother has been very cold. I can even say that I have a certain amount of hatred for her. All the following years before university, I just existed in my mom's house and Mason's. The only plus was that when my brother got a little older, my mom shifted all her attention to him because my brother loved Mason and didn't fight with my parents. So I was left behind at the age of 17. Lastly, when I was getting ready to move to university, I told my mom and Mason that I was grateful to them for my education. But with all this, I can't say that I love Mason as much as my dad, and I don't love my mom as much as I used to. My mom was very upset and told me to get out of their house. I haven't spoken to either of my parents in a long time. I keep in touch only with my grandmother and my brother. Maybe I'm a stupid girl who didn't want to show love to my stepfather. My mom definitely thinks so. Amelia, how disgusting it is when parents cannot show normal love to their children and start forcing them to love. It is so low that it is even hard to describe. You were only 11 years old when you lost your father, who was really a father, not just a person who was your relative. And now, after 1 year of loss, you are forced to love a new person who is supposed to replace your father. This is all very complicated and not done so abruptly. My cat died 3 years ago, but I still remember him and sometimes bring flowers to his grave, even though I am 27 years old. And what can you say about a little girl who is 11 years old? Your mom was thinking about how to get out of her own depression and found a great option in the form of Mason, but she didn't think that her option could be suitable only for her. Children need a different kind of father figure, not a new dad right after the death of their own. Logan, you don't deserve to be treated so badly by your mom. Why did she think she had the right to force you to love someone? I think such actions are done only for her own reasons, not for the sake of making her family happy. What would happen If you showed attention to Mason once, would all the problems in your family automatically disappear? You don't have to show love and attention to anyone. It's your decision and nothing more. You did the right thing when you ran away from your parents at the first opportunity. If you had stayed there any longer, it would have definitely ruined your life and your psyche. I don't know how your life will turn out. I can only wish you success and good people around you. Your family was not the best, but now is your chance to build your own good future. Now I want to tell a different story. After graduating from university, I met my friend Alexander. After a few years of knowing each other, Alexander and I started our own business. Now we have a joint medium-sized paper business. In fact, it is a profitable business if you enter the global market, but it is very far away at the moment. My business allows me to get more than $200,000 a month in net profit. At the same time, I am busy every day with business issues. I am currently 28 years old, and for the last year my business with Alexander has been making a steady profit. I can't say that I live like a tycoon, but I have a comfortable life and can eat whatever food I want and have enough money to afford, just like I did in college. A year ago, I met a girl named Harper. I found her very attractive among the other girls. Strangely enough, we met Harper at a nightclub. If things go so well with the production, then in 8 years, I will have enough money to live a comfortable life for the rest of my life. But given the broad desires of my family, this period will be slightly changed to other dates. I have never been sorry for money for any expenses. After all, that's partly why money exists. Harper is the kind of girl who likes to update her clothes every season. It must be some kind of addiction that is difficult to treat. I gave Harper a certain limit per month that she can spend so that there is no fanaticism in it. After all, we're not married and I don't want to waste money. I told Harper that her limit for the month was $6,000 from my bank account because Harper has her own job and earns her own money. I believe that we are all individuals, and it doesn't matter what status the person next to you has. You have to be worth something. Harper shares this value and tells me that I am right. However, there is one unpleasant moment for me and my girlfriend because I have successful friends and we go to visit them. Their lives look richer than ours with Harper. She often tells me that it would be cool to buy a car for her, or it would be nice to buy a house with a private pool like my friend Tani's. Sometimes Harper goes overboard and compares me to all the successful people she knows. I don't like that Harper sometimes focuses her attention only on my money. She's a very nice and pleasant girl who is very humble. But in the last 2 months, I have a slightly different impression of Harper. This is the second month that Harper has started to go over my budget for her. I don't mind if she uses this money to develop her personality, but not on new shoes, of which there are already 8 pairs in the room for things. I'm a little tired of Harper spending the third month on things it doesn't need. So I asked Harper out on a date and wanted to talk to her about it. When I started talking to her, Harper's mood changed a lot and her smile disappeared. She replied that all the things she had bought were very useful and would be used. I said, "Why do you need 2 new pairs of shoes, for which you paid $2,000 each, if you have 3 similar pairs in your closet?" Harper said, "You'll have a hard time understanding why girls need a lot of shoes." I replied, "It's not really about the shoes. It's about the deal we agreed on between us. You know that I am saving money so that we can have nice things in our later life." Harper said, "Darling, you're not the same as before. You're counting every cent now, and you're being hard on me. Is that a miser in you?" I replied, "I am generous, but you need to know the limits." Harper was offended that I had been so rude to her and had become so cruel. Later that night, I apologized to Harper, but she wouldn't listen to me. I may have become more frugal, but it's all for the sake of our future children and my own happiness. Although my girlfriend thinks I'm an asshole who has become greedy, Ethan, I understand the author of this story perfectly. I had times when my income was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Back then, I had a lot of girlfriends and friends, but as soon as my money started to disappear or my income dropped, all the people around me disappeared. Only my mom and some family members were with me. You're right to feel that Harper is taking advantage of you. I'm sure you liked Harper because of her sincerity and humility. But as time went on, Harper began to show her nature and that money was the ultimate goal for her. They say that money spoils people, but I can say for sure, that money helps to show what kind of person is inside. I know a lot of people who live poorly or with an average income, but they are richer than millionaires. Perhaps the author should find a new girlfriend who will not seek to satisfy her needs at someone else's expense. Evelyn, you think it's very cool that all people are individuals and have to realize themselves separately from others. In fact, for a long time, I lived like your girlfriend, but now I realize that my husband's money is not all mine. Each of us has to work on ourselves within the family. I am very sorry that your girlfriend has become useful. And when did you realize that she was taking advantage of you? Harper started saying, you were weird and started acting like a miser. In fact, it was a manipulation to judge you. Harper wants you to stop looking at the fact that she started taking too much money. You have a choice now. You can talk more openly with Harper and tell her that you won't be funding her so much. If she's with you for the money, I bet Harper will throw a tantrum. And if Harper takes it well, then you can relax a bit. It's not cool that you have to become a tax inspector in a relationship. Next story. I moved to another city with my sister Camila to start my studies. Our parents sponsored our studies throughout the course. There, each of us met people who loved us. My wife Aria works as a teacher at the school. We have been together for about 11 years. I have never regretted marrying Aria for a single day. In 11 years, we have had 2 wonderful children together. I never liked children, but when I had my own, my attitude changed. My sister Camila has only 1 child with her husband Aiden. They both have average jobs. There are no rich people in our family. Everyone has a good income and never goes hungry. Sometimes I allocate funds to help some people who are in need. This year, we decided to get together for the new year at my sister Camila's apartment because there is one big room where we can all be comfortable. There was a week left before the holiday, and we started thinking about the shopping list. Also, for your information, my wife and I have a 3rd child now, a boy named Matthew, who now lives with us. He turned 10 this year. Matthew came into my family as a result of the death of a single friend of mine. I could not leave Matthew to his fate. My job allows me to support so many people. That week, we went to my sister's house to spend time together and think about the grocery list for the new year in more detail. In the evening, when we were driving home with Aria, she told me that she heard a very strange conversation between Camila and Aiden. I got curious and started to find out what my wife was talking about. Aria said, when I was going to the restroom, I passed by the room where your relatives were. I heard Aiden say your name, and I decided to stop to listen. I know it's bad, but it was very interesting. Aiden started asking his wife Camila where the boy Matthew came from, since I hadn't told anyone why or how this boy was living with us. I didn't want to draw too much attention to his problems at the moment. Aria continued, your sister told Aiden that she didn't know where the boy Matthew came from, but it looks like they found the boy in a dumpster. After that, they started laughing and started to leave the room. After my wife said that, I was very upset that my sister dared to say that about Matthew. Don't think that we don't care about him. It's just that the boy is going through a bad period, and his face is often gloomy. We just don't keep him very busy with Aria. That's why I was angry about what Camila said. This boy meant a lot to me, and I'm not happy that someone would make fun of him. I was very good friends with Matthew's dad, so I will defend this boy. The next day, I called my sister Camila and asked her if she had seen a homeless person in her apartment. Camila asked again because she didn't understand what I was talking about. I said, yesterday when we were in your apartment with my family, you told your husband that Matthew looked so bad, that he looked like a homeless person. Camila said she didn't say that at all. And how did I know that? I replied that my wife overheard you talking to Aiden and told me, do you really think you have the right to make fun of other people by degrading them? Camila repeated, brother, it was just a joke. I don't think Matthew is a bad person. He seems to be a nice boy who behaves calmly. I told my sister that I would not stand for this lie. My family will not be in a house where people live who humiliate other people because of the way they look. Camila replied that I was being too critical and that she and her husband were fine with Matthew being at the party. I talked to my wife and said that we would not celebrate the new year at my sister's apartment, but rather spend the holiday with our family. Aria agreed to my proposal and said it would be even better. The next day, my sister started calling me and telling me to change my mind because what she said was just a rash joke and nothing more. I continued to refuse Camila. In the end, Camila said that I was a stupid sheep who wanted to ruin her holiday and couldn't get over myself. I responded to her insult to me as follows: Camila, how can I bring a child to a house where the owners consider this child to be abnormal and equate him to a homeless person? Camila did not answer anything and hung up. I told my cousin about everything, and he was teary-eyed when he found out. He said, I did the right thing. In fact, now I think I behaved too harshly. Maybe I should have closed my eyes to it and believed that it was a joke from Camila's words. Jackson, you did the right thing with your set. If Matthew were to find out about this situation, he would be very grateful to you for defending his dignity. Your sister took herself too far, even if it was in a private conversation with Aiden. That does not give her the right to humiliate someone. I don't understand why Camila couldn't admit her guilt right away. Like Camila wanted to prove she was innocent when she lied to you that she didn't say those words. You should find out what else Camila thinks about your family. Maybe your sister is spreading rumors about you or your wife. You know, it's not uncommon for family members to start joking around and spreading gossip among people. This is really very awful and low of your sister. I'm sure if you had done the same thing to her child, then Camila would have the same questions for you that you have for her now. What kind of mother is Camila to make jokes like that about other people's children? Scarlett, don't start thinking it's your fault Matthew is in your care. It's not your fault that there's been a misunderstanding in your family. In fact, you have become a good substitute for Matthew's dad. Of course, you are not his dad, but you care about his honor and status. How can a boy who lost his only father look like? I think if you told Camila where this boy came from, Camila came to you personally and then to Matthew to apologize. We humans often jump to certain conclusions without knowing anything, and then we walk around as if we know better than anyone else in the world. Camila thought that no one else could hear her, so she could make fun of people, but justice exists for everyone. Your sister makes up stupid stories on her own, and then says that she didn't say anything at all, and that it wasn't her fault. It's like Camila is just a child herself, unable to take responsibility for her words. If you said something, then have the courage to admit it. I wonder how many times Camila has humiliated your family members behind your back, because it is very immoral to say that children look like homeless people.